time that I see you as a professor for this lecture. Thank you.
Okay, Mohan, shall I make a start?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. Well, a very good evening to all of you and a very warm welcome to the Strategic Management Program. My name is Professor Dr. Lester Massingham. I've directed this program now for nearly 10 years at the London School of Commerce. It's a program that has had over 10,000 students that have registered and gone through. So you're in very good hands. My ambition this weekend is to help you in two respects. One is to go through the assignment very carefully, so that when we go back on Sunday night, you're very clear on what it is you have to do. And the second thing is that I would like to explain a lot about strategic management and relate that to different contexts. Now, I have written a case study on DHL, and I thought DHL would be a good case for you because you all know, understand, and use them. And I brought that up to date with the latest news release. So that's been put onto your student portal. I would suggest that you take a close look at it, because we will be referring to it from time to time to try to anchor the subject, because strategic management is actually quite complex. So this evening, if my voice lasts that long, we are going to be together for about 2 hours. And then tomorrow we have 2 sessions, and Sunday we have 2 sessions. So in total, we have 5 sessions together. So on my slide here, it says we have 3 sessions. Actually, it's 5. So our agenda together, what is it all about? You, of course, are concerned about this very weighty assignment. It's a lot of work, and I really want to make sure that you are confident about it at the end of the day. And the manual that you have in front of you is a new manual designed for the program, and it's being issued to you. And I just want to draw your attention to it. You will find that in the manual, which you have a copy of, that every step of the way in the manual, there are questions for you to answer, there are keywords, there's a lot of good content in here. Now, why? The manual has been designed for online learning, whereas the previous manual was designed for face-to-face. So this will be easier for you to study from. So I hope that's going to be helpful. And what I've done is to organize the manual into 4 important parts. It's about strategic analysis and planning. It's about strategic purpose. It's about strategic options and strategic Could you please, Mohan, could you mute everyone's microphones, please?
Okay, sir. Sure.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So the manual is designed around those sections of the subject of strategic management, which so happen will align with your assignment. So the manual content is designed to help you with this assignment, and that's your luck. And from that point of view, there's probably not any requirement for you to read much more other than doing a keyword search. So I would suggest that you have access to the manual pretty much all the time, because as we go through, I will be referring to the manual. So probably you might find it helpful to have like 2 screens, maybe one on your iPad or your laptop, and maybe your mobile phone, so that we can refer to the slides, which are here, and also the manual, which is very substantial. The manual is well over 200 pages, a lot of content there. So as time is of the essence, we should make a start on our first agenda item. And this is dealing with your assignment. So if you can kindly find the assignment in your pack of materials, I'd like to go through it this evening with you quite carefully, so that you know what it is that we are having to attend to. And also, I'd like to introduce Dr. Loga, who is here tonight with you, who will be your local tutor to guide you through the preparation and submission of your assignment.
Hi, Dr. Lester. Good evening.
Good evening and a warm welcome to you, Dr. Logan.
You too.
Here again.
And good evening to everyone too.
Good evening, Dr. Rosa.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening,
Good evening.
guys. I will be with you.
Hi, good evening, doctor.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Lester.
Oh, no, it's good, always good to see you and to know that you're around. That's great.
It's great too.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let's have a look at the assignment together. And if I can do that now, it means that Dr. Logo will be going through the assignment with you, where we're all on the same page. Because I don't want to do a briefing and then find that, you get misguided or guided differently from somebody else. But so the manual is organized around your assignment. Now, as you can see in the assignment, you've got two parts. The first assignment is a set of tasks that you need to undertake. And the second part of the assignment is extending your report into a series of 15 PowerPoint slides. So it's almost like a consultancy job whereby you put in a report and then the report goes to the board, but you give a shorter presentation about the top findings, the top recommendations for your client. And that's basically what this is all about, is trying to mirror that process. So I'm sure you will be guided on the detail of that, but let's get started. Have a look at your first task. So here it is. As a strategy consultant, you have been approached by the board of directors of an existing company of your choice to advise them on their future strategic direction. Now, for those of you who feel that you're not in a position to do that very well because you're between jobs or you don't have access to the level of thinking, we need to go into the public domain. So you could take any company from the public domain. Just 15 minutes before opening our program tonight, I was on the phone to the UK having a conversation with some people about Coca-Cola's strategy for the future. And I said to them, I can't share anything with you that I don't have and I don't know, or I'm not at liberty to share. But what I can tell you is what's in the public domain that will influence future strategy for the product line in the Euro-Pacific market. You see, you can do the same thing. So to help you, for those people that feel that they need that help, you could use the DHL case study, which I have produced for you, as a means of getting your assignment done. Because all of your interpretations of DHL will have some different variations, etc. And indeed, this is the way that some MBA programs are run. They become case study based. But they give you a Harvard case study, which is probably 10 years old, hasn't been updated. But with DHL, it's right up to date. So as a strategy consultant, what is it that you have to do? The job of a consultant is really to have a look at what's wrong and to make recommendations to put it right. So we go into questions about where are we now? Where have we come from? Where should we be? Where do we need to go? Which way is best, and how do we ensure our arrival? But the thing about strategy consulting is that you are expected to produce a management report. So this is not an essay, it's a management report. So structure, headings, numbering systems, presentations matter. So that's something you must pay particular attention to. So what I would advise you to do is to choose that company. It could be your own. Look into the website and see what there is there. What has happened over the last 3 years? Have a look at the last 3 years annual reports. Have a look at the chairman's report. And in that chairman's report, they normally produce an outlook for the future and some indication about future strategy, which you also have in the case study from DHM. You can get enough to be able to advise them about the direction for the future. Now, here is the interesting thing. You're having to advise them on their choice for future strategic direction. When this assignment was written, there was no pandemic. So now, your answers need to be driven by the environmental drivers. So you will have to make some statement, a background statement at the beginning of your answer to talk about the context, talk about the environment, talk about the challenges before getting into those answers to do the scene setting. It's a little bit writing a background statement in your final project, but this only needs to be probably 50 words, just to set the scene. Now, some industries are benefiting from the pandemic big time. Others are suffering. Others are closing. And new industries emerging, new players are emerging. Now, the brief then says you're required to present your opinion. Okay. Now, this is what we call at MBA level critical thinking and critical judgment. So when you present your ideas, recommendations based on fact, proposals based on evidence, to ensure that your answers have substance. So we must make sure that in your role as a consultant, whatever you're saying must draw on the context, the industry context, the competitive context, the market context, the company context, so that you bring this to life. So you'll need to do some analysis, some interpretation of that analysis, make some ideas, proposals for strategic management, and justify the reasons for your answers, your proposal to the 5 tasks that have been indicated in the assignment. Now, it needs to be report format. You need a contents page up front. You need an executive summary of about 200 words to summarize the whole report, as well as the background statement to the industry, the company, and the context. So this is before you get started. So we've got 3,000 words plus or minus 10%. So those 300 words can be used to get started, to dress your proposal. and then, we can get on with the job. So the first task here talks about the strategic direction the company has followed in the past and the way in which strategic thinking has developed within the past 5 years. So you've got to turn the clock back. And now what becomes interesting, is how do you look at strategic direction? So we have to start thinking about strategic intent, looking at change in vision and mission. If you look at DHL, there's big changes in their strategy. So what you now need to do is to bring the historical development up to date and make a comment on how you think the organization has evolved. So this is your judgment. Your judgment needs to be based on facts and figures that need to be sourced. And the best place of that is the annual report. So we will be going through various models on how to do this. I'll be talking about strategic distinctiveness. I'll be using something called the servo model. We'll be looking at resource alignment. We'll look at how the organizations are sweating their assets, how they're going about strategic planning, what transformation agendas they have running, the impact of technology on the business, their approach to customer centricity, and so on. So all of these agendas you will pull together to be able to get the first task done. Now, this is very much your start to the report. So your skill will depending on your ability to put this together, as well as using defined content. Now, that is quite a woolly start, but bear in mind, it's comprising 20% of the answer. So we need to make sure that you're going to get 12 out of 20 or 13 out of 20 on that first. And I think this is where you could lose marks. Without a good task one, the rest of the tasks don't mean anything. So here is the clue. Try to integrate tasks 5, 4, 3, and 2 with 1, so that it comes together as a piece. All right, so then let's move on to task number 2. You're asked to provide, and I quote, a detailed analysis of the industry in which the company is operating, to include the choice and use of appropriate frameworks for strategic analysis, to a critical discussion of the company's competitive advantage using direct competitors, and a probable industry scenarios. Now, this is very easy because industry analysis, we can use the work of Michael Porter, and I'll explain how that works. Scenario analysis in the manual, I'll explain how to use that as well. So task number 2 is pretty much all to do with Porter and his contribution to this subject, and a little bit of scenario planning, and a few other ideas which I will share with you as we go through. So it's very easy. You could pick up good marks there. But don't just put in the model and expect the examiner to make the linkage. You cite the model, draw the model, apply the model, and then explain what the model means. Interpret the model. to
Professor Lester, for the task 2, your recommendations is only for Michael Porter's model. Can we use other models, possibly like pastel model?
I don't think pastel is appropriate. Now, what I'd like to suggest, because we have 125 people in the room, if there are any questions, please put them into a chat, okay? And they will handle them at the end of the session. Otherwise, it would disrupt the class and we won't be able to finish. So please just mute your microphones during the presentation. So just follow the guidance, you'll be fine. So, to go back over where I was, and this is why I don't like being interrupted in this way, because it is disrupting the flow. And I'm not working from any notes, I work level anyway. I'm just looking at your assignment and trying to help you in whatever way I can. So this becomes disruptive and it's not productive. So to go back over this, then they want a detailed analysis of the industry in which the company is operating. So I would suggest that you use Porter's 5 forces. And then the second part of this question is to have a critical discussion of the company's competitive advantage amongst its direct competitors. Now, we could have a look beyond Porter's 5 forces into the positioning of the industry, the differentiation, the difference in the brand value propositions, whether the company has a blue ocean that is actually trading. And then the third area is to look at the future industry scenario. So what I would do is to have a look at pandemic and post-pandemic scenarios, if there is ever such a thing. Because the reality, as we now realize, is that this pandemic has become endemic. We have to live with it. And that's what most countries are now realizing. We have to learn to live with this. I must confess that 2 days ago, I had all the symptoms. I went for my swab test yesterday. I feel that I got really bad viral flu at the moment. I'm not exactly on top of the world, but at least my test was negative. Now, what does that mean for companies? What does it mean for the workforce? What does it mean for mobility of business? There's a lot of potential scenarios that we can think about. So your scenario planning becomes important. Now, to answer your question, you can use whatever tool you feel is going to be relevant to you. You can use SWOT analysis if you want. But if you're not using the right tool for the job, you won't fix the leak in the bathroom. So, you've got a leak in the bathroom, are you going to take a screwdriver to it? No. Are you going to take a wrench? Yes. So you've got to be able to work out the best tool. And that's what I'm trying, my best to advise you on which way to go. Now, task 3 asks you to extend your analysis further. And what you're asked to do is to consider whether the company's vision and mission statements are aligned to the demands of the marketplace. So, we will have a look at some vision and mission statements. I've given you examples of DHL. We'll take a look at that together as well. We'll have a look at other examples. We'll have a look at the Ashridge model for evaluating mission statements. But the thing that we have to think about now is how many vision and mission statements are aligned to the demands of the marketplace. Because vision statements are aspirational. They are inspirational. Nothing to do with market demand. The mission statement is a statement, fundamentally, of purpose, but it's never written that way. It's intended about what we intend to do, not why. And I've been involved as a consultant for many years, writing these statements, rewriting the statements, and I can tell you categorically, the last thing you think about is the marketplace. You think about internally where the organization wants to go. What is its strategic intent? It's not the time to do an outside-in approach, because that just. So these are things that you need to take into account. Now, what you're asked to do is to analyze these statements. So what I need to do to help you is to give you a framework to help you to do that. Otherwise, there'll be no substance in that. But it does say further analysis. So if I'm conducting critical analysis rather than strategic analysis, I want to be asking myself, is there a mission gap? Is there a vision gap? Is there a performance gap? Does the business strategic intent and its core values link back to the vision and the mission? So the real issue at the end of the day is relevance. And you would be able to make those judgments. I've been doing some consultancy work during the pandemic, and I've just finished a strategic plan for a hospital, 5-year plan for a hospital. And I've been a director on that board for 14 years. So I know the industry pretty well. And we have just rewritten our purpose statement, our vision statement, our mission statement, and our core values for the next 5 years. The last time we did it was 10 years ago. So it's not something that you look at and keep changing every 1 to 2 years. There's no point in having them. So these statements have an important contribution to strategic management. But many organizations have them because they think they're nice to have. They need to go in the foyer. They need to go into the annual report. The real issue that I have seen so often is that these are wonderful cosmetic statements that do not have any leverage. They don't drive anything. They're just nice to have. And the trend now, as we will look at, when we look at this together, is to make the mission statements almost like taglines. So I'm sure you're very familiar with touch and go. Now we know that's the name of a company. It can also be a tagline. But the way that people are now putting together mission statements, touch and go, can become a mission statement. It's what do you mean by touch and go? You see? So this whole science of vision and mission statements and all the statements of strategic intent has yet to be perfected. And then we move into task 4. And it asks us what possible strategies should the company follow to defend its core business? Now, this is a very meaty question, a very important question. I was actually talking about this, about Coca-Cola, just about an hour ago. Now, it's quite interesting because we have got to think about it from an MBA point of view, and we need to use models. You can't just pull the strategies out of the sky. So there are two sources that we must consider carefully. One is the Ansoff matrix, which is about growth strategies. And the second is to look at the work of Mintzberg, Henry Mintzberg, on his strategies for growth and how you can grow and elaborate and extend and articulate core business. Now, these two contributors, Ansoff has passed away a few years ago, Mintzberg is now into his 80s. Their contribution has been fantastic. It's what we call original thought and seminal contribution. So these are the people that you need to be aware of. Use your models, apply the models, and I would suggest that these two, at least, are really, really worth looking at. Now, when we look at core business, the work of Henry Mintzberg in his earlier work said some important things. He said, when we are considering extending our core business, there's one critical question. Do we have the capacity? And do we have the competency? Do we have the capacity? Do we have the competency? So now, what we're being asked to do is to discuss possible strategies. This word discuss is so loose. In a report to management, there's no such thing as a discussion. You make your recommendations. So I would suggest you propose strategies for the company to defend its core business and then justify them. Now, Mintzberg's thinking on core business goes like this. Does our business strategy for the future to protect and extend our core business have sufficient capacity? And do we have the competencies? Now, about must be 2 years ago now, because I've been locked and stuck in Malaysia for 18 months as a result of the pandemic. I couldn't get back to the UK and I've remained here ever since. But just before the pandemic, I was doing some work in Saitanaga in your big power company here. Now, the proposals, the government proposals for the industry is to deregulate the industry. So as one monopoly organization moves into a competitive, privatized marketplace where competition comes in. And I gave a presentation, or several presentations actually, to explain how this had happened in the UK, in Germany, in Australia, as a result of deregulation. Competition comes in, etc. And I painted that picture. And I also went through the UK power industry very, very carefully with all the key players, looking at their revenue, their turnover, and their profitability to point out that deregulation was probably good for the customer, perhaps, But as far as the companies are concerned, there was only 1 or 2 out of almost 80 providers that are making any profit. So what is the purpose of deregulation? Then the sting in the tail was this. If Tenaga has to go into a privatized, deregulated industry space, do they have the competency for retail-based competition? Answer no. Do they have the capacity? Yes, they have the power development capacity on the grid. But I don't mean that. I'm talking about managerial capacity, leadership capacity, leadership development capacity. To enter this new market space, answer no. So what they have done is to do what is called a competency gap audit, to identify where the gaps are to be ready, of which there are around about 40. Now, why I'm sharing this with you is to get the message of Mintzberg across. If we're looking at any new strategic move, do we have the capacity? Do we have the competency? You look at Westminster College, which you're all members of, and we're all very proud to be involved with Westminster College over many, many years. And, you know, the team have been there doing a very good job for a long time. But you think about the business and you wonder, where is the innovation? MBA has been around for many years, BBA has been around for many years. What are we doing that is new? We've probably got an alumni of 5, 6, 7,000 students. I'm sure there's a wonderful opportunity for market development, for headhunting, for career development, for counseling, for coaching, for mentoring. There's all sorts of value-added products that could be provided by the college. But why hasn't that happened? And the answer is very simply this, that Westminster College sticks to its core business. It sticks to what it knows best. Why? Because they don't have the capacity and the competency to do all these other things. And there are many entrepreneurial-driven companies that fall into this mistake of chasing rainbows and spreading the resource base so thin that everything fails. So I'm just sharing with you my passion for Mintzberg's thinking, because his thinking is unique. There's nobody else who's written meaningfully about his work. He also talks about the possible strategies, being a plan, being a ploy, being about positioning, being about perspective. So I would commend you to looking up Mintzberg's ideas on YouTube. He's got some very good videos, and I think you can understand where he's coming from. And indeed, I will be covering that later. But these are good sources for you, to be able to think about. Now, it also says, discuss possible strategies that the company could follow to defend its core business. The other model that I would suggest you think about using is the business model. You can use Osterwalder's canvas or something very similar to point out where are you going to build extra value creation to protect the core business. Use the business model canvas to locate your action. Then you're going to have a fantastic answer. And then the final task number 5, says, in light of your discussion of 1, 2, 3, and 4, analyze and evaluate. Gosh, that's a lot to do. The resource implications of your recommendation. Okay, now, this is an important question. And it comes back to capacity and competency, of course. But what resources do we have and what do we need? Let me just share something with you which just comes to mind as I'm talking to you, or talking to the screen. We did some consultancy work for Amana Raya, which is an asset management company here in Malaysia, based in KL. And I put together new strategies, new marketing strategies and so on for the company. And when we came to discuss the resourcing of these plans, the managing director said to me, all I want to do is to improve what we have, not replace what we have, or put in what we don't have. And I should never forget that, because the consultants in this world very often entice you into new territory, new expenditure, new investment. But what he's saying to me, look, I want you to improve what we have. I don't want you to bring in any big, wonderful ideas about resource changing to our people, our technology, our systems, etc. So here is one thought. Do we need extra resources or not? Now, we're doing a current project for a oil company here in Malaysia at the moment on digital transformation. It started in August 2019, and it's probably going to run for 5 years. And we are now at the transitioning stage. The templates are done, the roadmaps are done. Now we're going from the transitioning stage to move analog to digital in the procurement department as a pilot project. Now that's a big strategy, been approved by Tokyo. Everything's been done, albeit it takes some time, but it's been done, the budget is there. So now, what are the resource implications? In terms of people, in terms of technology, I need to bring in third-party contractors who have the technology, experience, wisdom, mindset, commitment, cultural alignment to work with the client. And that's been done. So there's the resource implications. And when I originally was involved in this tender for this work, the managing director said to me, he said, we can't start work until we have the budget approved by Tokyo. So there is his view of resource. His view, everything comes back to money. If there's no money, we can't do anything. So I need to get approval from Tokyo. And then we can run. And we make sure we ask Tokyo for a lot more than we need, so we don't have to go running back. I said, well, you're the Japanese boss, you know the culture, you know how to be able to play that game. So my advice to you now is to evaluate the resource implication. Here it goes. What can we use that we already have? What needs to be developed from what we have? What extra resources are required? And why and when? And then what is the impact going to be on the business as a result of this resource deployment? So that's looking at it from a macro point of view. From a micro point of view is what resources do we need? You know, we always go back to think like people and money and assets. But time is a resource. Your brand is a resource. Your stakeholder relationships are a resource. Your employee engagement is a resource. So we're going to go through a resource audit carefully, which is already in the manual, and that will make your answer very, very easy for you. So what I want to do is to introduce the assignment so that whatever we do from here on in has a purpose. Now, this is answering task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you've also got your introduction statement. Now, as a consultant for many, many, many years, you never put in a report like this without bringing it to some form of conclusion. Okay? Now, a consultancy report is not concluded because you can't conclude it. What you do need to do is to think about outcome or impact. So you put these 5 tasks together, and then at the end of this, your final summary statement is about the desired outcome from your proposals. And the desired outcome is obviously for the stakeholders, your employees, your customers, your competitors, your investors, and so on. Now, I think outcome is okay. But some work that we were doing here for another GLC about a year, 18 months ago, just before COVID, was done for one of the GLC companies that specialize, or is focused on philanthropic work. Kazana will give them so many million ringgit a year to be distributed into worthy causes, societal development, nation building, and so on. So the work that we did for them required a strategic plan that was concluded with an impact statement. Not an outcome statement, an impact statement. So what they've never been able to achieve, and were in search of doing for the last 5 years, was to find a set of KPIs that would measure the impact of distributing aid to different places, the arts, education, and so on. So this was a very different piece of consultancy work. It's not about profit, but it's about social impact. How do you produce a social impact statement? So you take these 5 tasks, bring them together, and then think about either the outcome or the impact that you want to create. Now, let me go back to the beginning, because you are a consultant. And at the moment, I'm writing a new program on management consultancy. At the moment, probably it will be launched in maybe 1 to 2 years' time. And I just finished writing the first manual on the consultancy process as a result of experience, nothing from the books or the journal article, etc. And the consultancy process that I've identified has got 15 steps. Now, the first step that you think about in building up your proposal is that you've got to work with your client to understand where they're coming from, to get an understanding of their culture, the things that are important to them, their pain points. And once you've been able to get that understanding, you can then start to put together your proposal. Okay, now, you capture that in the first few days, and you need to be able to put that into a proposal, because that is where you are going to hopefully deliver a result. So when I write up the report, I go back to the proposal, go back to the terms of reference in that proposal, and ask myself, what is the desired impact that needs to be created? That goes into the report. Now, if I'm involved in implementation consultancy, rather than prescriptive consultancy, the implementation plan will be responsible for achieving that impact, meaning we need to put some measurement device, some metric in place to measure the impact of task 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Otherwise, it becomes an academic exercise and is nothing like the work that a strategy consultant does. So a strategy consultant has got to lay out very clearly what the roadmap is. What are the steps to be taken? And why? And when? And with whom? But what the client is interested in is what are you going to, what are the results that we can expect? So you sell the results in the proposal, deliver them in the report as a roadmap, or deliver them in the report as an implementation consultant. Now, I've done both. I started life in London as a consultant, well, not as an accountant actually, but my third job was working in the oil and associated energy industries, doing econometric forecasting for oil and associated energy demand across the world, looking at solar, nuclear demand, and all sorts of interesting stuff. Now, that wasn't implementation consultancy, that was prescriptive consultancy, definitive consultancy, producing definitive reports on energy demand across the world, for which we would supply these to clients in different parts of the world, Japan being one, South America, and so on. As you move into the consultancy world, you get involved in implementation, you get involved in the hand-holding. So you have got to decide, at the beginning in your background statement, who are you? I think this is the thing that you must get across to the examiner. Who are you? You're not just a strategy consultant. Are you an independent strategy consultant? Are you internal consultant? Are you working on behalf of a consultancy company? Small, medium, large, big four, whatever. Okay. So I think, Dr. Loga, that is where I want to leave it in terms of giving a brief. And that's what we're going to be doing over the weekend, to take people through all of these steps using the manual. So I hope that that's helpful for everybody, and that you've got some indication about how to move forward. So is that okay for you, Dr. Loga?
Yes, thank you so much, Prof.
Okay.
I really appreciate, and I think I've been taking down notes all throughout to make sure that we are in line and in sync. And
Thank you. It's a very, very interesting assignment. It's very rich. It's very substantial. And the interesting thing about it, and I didn't write it, it's not my work. The interesting thing about it is that this is what strategy consultants do in so many different fields. So if you can grasp this process, you've got a skill set to be able to take away.
Yes, Prof. I also must admit that it is very much different from the previous ones, huh?
Oh yes.
Yeah, I can see the flow. The flow. That's a lot of. Yeah, the flow is very concrete and very constructive. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity too, Prof.
No, I think what they're going to need help with is the academic citation throughout this process, just to keep the university happy. Okay, guys. I want to change the pace and change the style and get into the subject. So let's take a 10-minute break. Okay, we'll come back in 10 minutes and we'll move into the manual. Okay?
Thank you so much. And thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. See you all, guys, on site next week.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.